You're listening to Cat
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Cat Tales. I'm joined by multi-instrumentalist and punk aficionado David Donley. He's played with almost everyone who's anyone, as well as being a member of Glen Matlock's Philistines, Holy Holy, and almost The Cure. Now he tells a few tales on the people in his phone book and tells me about his first vinyl release with a few friends as the Venus Reaction. This is the one with David Donley. So Dave, Mr. Punk, you are really Mr. Punk of East Anglia here. So
I try.
You have been around it, you have been playing in it, you have rubbed shoulders with it,
Yes.
and everyone else there is to know.
Indeed.
So let me start at the beginning of your long and illustrious career, because it spans quite a few years, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, I always wanted to be a musician from the age of 5 when I discovered my father's drum kit in the basement of the house that we lived in at the time. And then when I got to about 12, 13, I had songs in my head, but I had these sort of kiddie bands that I had at school and stuff, and they wouldn't take, like most bands, they don't take the drummer seriously when he says, I've got a song. So I taught myself how to play guitar, just bar chords and what have you, and I'd come up with these dreadful songs now when you look back at them. But
You cringe a bit, do you?
But I wanted to do that, and then I realised once you play guitar that if you're in the sort of stuff that I was doing, which is like your punk rock stuff, you can pretty much play bass. It's 2 strings less, and you're only playing one note at a time. As a rule. I've improved since, but
And you go to upset a lot of bass players by simply saying that. You realise, don't you?
No, but there's some bass is one of those wonderful instruments that you can play almost immediately, but it takes a lifetime to master.
Right.
Where we're sitting here doing this interview is Vowood House, where there was an amazing festival, and Guy Pratt, who's Pink Floyd's bass player, incredible. I'll never get anywhere near that guy, but you can start really simply, and you can have a go. I was in Erdal Kizilkay's band, who's Bowie's bass player, and oddly enough, he was playing keyboards and I was playing bass.
Right.
And so I got an absolute masterclass from Erdal Kizilkay, the man himself. And when he would take the bass off me and go, it goes like this, David, he's Turkish. That was a terrible Turkish accent. But he's a master musician, and I would, take quick lessons off him for things like Ashes to Ashes and Heroes and stuff like that.
Amazing.
And to watch the man who did the Glass Spider tour, co-wrote Buddha of Suburbia, did the Sound and Vision tour with Bowie himself, to get lessons like that. So no having a go at bass players. But basically, back to the story, what I discovered that once I could play drums, guitar and bass, I could do my own demos, and then I decided that if I was going to try and have a crack at being a musician, I should try and keep all the options open on all instruments.
Yeah.
The only thing I've never really played professionally is keyboards, because they frighten me.
Oh,
if you hit a wrong note on a guitar, you can bend it. If you do a roll around the drums and you're one beat out, you add another beat and you're in. If you hit a bad note on a keyboard, it is horrific.
It stands out like a sore
So
thumb.
I do play keyboards on my own stuff, but only really in the studio, and very simple live stuff if I've I ended up doing that. But
Terrific.
But basically, when I was my real journey started, I suppose, was when I was 14, and I was so into music. I used to help out at a place called Top Deck Records on the market, and they were selling tickets for this band that hardly anyone had heard of called The Cure. And I was given a free ticket to go along, and I went along, and the manager of The Cure said, would you like to come and meet everybody? And I said, yeah. I had no idea what they looked like, and I'd only really heard of The Forest.
Yeah.
But he sat me next to Lol Tolhurst, and to cut a long story short, me and Lol are still friends. We met up last year and stuff, and I kind of I watched The Cure's journey from small venues to massive stadium status.
Amazing.
And Lol was a really good mentor, and there was a period of times, a lot of people still say to me, weren't you in The Cure at one point? No, I wasn't. I was not in The
nearly.
Cure. But, yeah, very nearly. Because basically what it was I used to go and visit Lol in London, and there was a period of time where they were having rehearsals at John Henry's in London, and people wouldn't show up. And because I'd learned everything on all the instruments, if someone was missing, I'd step in. It was never the full band. I mean, there was one rehearsal where I played drums for the entire thing, and it was just me and Phil Thornley, who's the bass player at the time. There was one time when Lol didn't turn up, so I.
So you were in The Cure then? In an unofficial capacity?
In a room I was. And I must say that when I'm still friends with Andy Anson, who was the drummer at the time, but it was after then that Andy left when they were in Japan. And Lowell told me that my name came up. I was too young, basically, to be taken. And also Boris from the Thompson Twins was in Japan, I believe.
Right.
And he was a friend of Phil's, and so that's how. So I suppose I missed it, but I don't think I really missed it. I don't think I was in contention properly, you know.
It's strange how these things go, isn't it? You know, that's a close shave in a way, isn't it? Really, it could have been so different. It could have been taking you down a different route.
Oh yeah. But what it did do was it showed me that rock stars on a massive level are quite normal. They still rehearse. I remember the last day of rehearsal, we were all packing the gear away.
Yeah.
Everyone's packing the gear away, putting it into the cupboard that they had at John Henry's next to AC/DC's.
Yeah, I love it.
And I remember being dropped off. Robert was in the front seat of Phil Thornley's Volkswagen Beetle, me and Lol in the back, and we all just got dropped off at our various places. And it was just like normal bands.
Oh, the glamour.
But that made me realise it was possible.
Yeah.
It was possible to be in a band that was on, you know, Top of the Pops and on doing videos and playing to massive places, and yet everyone, can have a lift.
Yes,
you know, is it all right? And go down the pub after rehearsals. And I've got a picture of me and Robert Smith down the pub, actually.
Wonderful.
With my first ever alcoholic drink.
Oh.
Because he refused to let me have a Coke or something like that. It's a funny story.
It's not rock and roll
well,
enough.
no, it's just because my parents never drank, and I never really was into drinking. And I was 18, 19.
I was going to say, how old were you here? 14?
I was 18, 19 years old, but I'd never had a drink. And I remember after rehearsal, Robert said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'll have a Coke, please." And he goes, "Have a proper drink." And I said, I don't know what to have. And he goes, "Well, you like fizzy drinks then, do you?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you like fizzy apple?" And I said, "Yeah." So he bought me a cider. And I was absolutely slaughtered on one pint.
Oh,
because,
no.
I'd never had a drink before.
Love it.
So, and the Cure also introduced me to curry. That's another thing.
Oh,
that they
really?
did. Yeah, we went for a curry a few times. So that was the start of it. And then I went through the whole thing of local bands and trying to do that. I did live in Paris for a short while because Lowell from The Cure produced a band called Baroque Bordello.
Okay.
And they needed a keyboard player stroke guitarist, second guitarist stuff, and so I went over there, but it was one of those, they were signed to Polydor France, I think, and such a long time now, 1985 I think it was, but I don't really realise, but basically I only stayed for a couple of months or so, it didn't, and the band broke up quite soon afterwards, but and I went down the trail of normal stuff, and I know it seems to be, I just carried on being in Norwich music, doing various bands, and then the next kind of thing where it went sort of pro, if you like, is Glen Matlock played the Art Centre in 2002, Norwich Art Centre.
Yeah.
And afterwards, with the cheek of the devil, I suppose, I just went up to him and I had a DVD of just myself playing drums, guitar and various things in local bands, and I gave it to him with my telephone number on it and said, "Look, I'd love the gig tonight." It was the Philistines, and I said, "But if anyone I'd cottoned on to the idea that there was such things as stand-ins, that people, if somebody I'd noticed that bands sometimes had a different drummer for a month or something."
Yeah.
And I realised, so I said to him, "Look, if anyone has an accident or there's a problem or anything like that, I know your songs, all your solo stuff. I mean, I love the Pistols and everything, but Glen's a songwriter as far as I'm concerned."
Yeah.
And
bit of a poet.
oh, he's amazing,
Incredible.
and his solo albums are fantastic, And I loved him, so I told him, "I know your back catalogue back to front on 3 different instruments, so give me a shout if you need any help." And it was literally a year to the week that I did that. I was actually working a normal job at HMV at the time, and he rang me. And he said something like, "Well, I won't make you a millionaire, Dave, but, is there any chance you could come down to London?" It was for guitar, this was.
Oh, wonderful.
So I went down to London. We had a rip through the set a few times. Me, Glen and Chris Musto, who's still playing with Glen, and he's played with Iggy Pop. No, actually, I think it's Johnny Thunders that Chris was with. Great drummer. But then I think Glen didn't really know what to do with the band. He wasn't, and I remember there was a Glastonbury thing in 2004, and I was still sort of saying to him, "Are you going to do this? Are you going to do this band?" He goes, "Oh, I don't know. And so fast forward to 2010, where the Philistines was basically James Stevenson from The Alarm, The Cult, Gene Loves Jezebel, to every
Nice
other
guy.
band, every other band
Yes.
you've ever heard of. Jim Lowe, who's the producer for the Stereophonics, and a great bass player. Glen and Javier from the Stereophonics. On drums.
Yeah.
Now, Javier obviously was quite a bit in demand at the time, and I believe that the main reason that he couldn't do this Canadian tour that came up was because he was getting married or something. He was going on safari or something like that, I think. And I was going to roadie it, you see, and Glen said to me, I don't think I got a call from Glen's agent saying, I don't think the Canada tour's going to happen because Javier can't do it.
Right.
So I said, well, I know I've been playing guitar for Glen, but can you just remind him I'm a drummer? And then within 10 minutes of that call, I think Glen got back to me and just
fabulous.
went, can you do this? And I went, yeah, I could do it tomorrow if you asked me to, and he goes, oh, great, it's back on then.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I was in the Philistines, and
of course I saw you here at Vowood House.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I was that the night that I got... No, there was another thing where the Glen played, but then we ended up playing with Adam Ant, didn't we?
That's
we
right,
did the
yes.
encores
That
with
was
Adam Ant.
That was the year before.
That was great.
Yeah.
And
because Adam didn't have a band at the time.
No, that's right. And he just wanted to do...
Yeah.
He'd done an acoustic set with the dearly departed, rest in peace, Tom.
Yeah.
Tom Edwards, who went earlier this year, which is terribly sad because he was a lovely bloke and a great player. But yeah, it was just him and Adam, and then I think it was in the dressing room. Adam was going, let's do some electric stuff, and I was, well, what do you want to do then?
Oh, no.
And so he decided that we did No Fun, Shaking All Over, No Lip, and Pretty Vacant, I think, and that was great.
Bit of ripping it up there, bit of jamming,
and also
that's what music's all about, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
really?
and the chances that I'll never forget. What would have been the greatest YouTube clip of my entire career was that because Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd was there, and afterwards we were talking to each other, and I was saying I could see you, and you were singing along to every word of Pretty Vacant, and he goes, yeah, my wife's really into the Pistols, and I said, really? Oh, cool. And then Glen sort of said, Glen just sort of offhand said, oh, you should have got up and joined us, and Dave Gilmour said, well, you should have asked me. And I just thought, imagine what that would have been like. Adam Ant on vocals, Glen on bass, Dave Gilmour on guitar with me on drums. But it didn't happen.
Oh, next time.
Yeah, next time indeed. So basically, I was with the Philistines for all the stuff after that. Javier came back for a little while, but I think then the Stereophonics pinched him again, and I took over. And although the Philistines haven't played since Wayfest, which was a couple of years ago, technically I suppose I'm still the drummer in the Philistines. But whether the Philistines actually exists or not, I'm not sure. But through Glen, I mean, I've got a lot to thank Glen for.
He's a great guy, though, isn't he?
He really is. And
Mr. Pixie, I call him.
Yeah.
He's a little impish person.
He can get furious. I remember an incident in Poland that I thought he was going to wallop a promoter at one
dear.
point, but, and I just thought, God, yeah, he can be a bit handy if he needs to. But no, he is one of the most generous people I've ever worked for. Him and Midge are two people
Midge is
that
lovely too, isn't he? He's a
genuine
genuine
guy.
guy.
Worked a bit with Midge as well, and his team. It's who you have around you sometimes, I think. And Midge's team are amazing. But yeah, Glen's put a lot of things my way, and I've ended up working with Viv Albertine for 4 years from the Slits, and that's amazing because I had posters of Viv on my wall when I was a young lad.
Must be very surreal.
I
really.
did tell her this, and she had a giggle at that. You know.
And she gave you another picture.
And she was probably a bit sick in her own mouth, I imagine.
You may say that, but I couldn't possibly comment.
But it does mean that it's quite weird that my phone's full of people like, Mick Jones from The Clash and stuff. And every now and again I'll get a little text message from Viv, and when I've finished reading it, I still think, Viv Albertine just texted me a hello or happy birthday or something. It's just really nice.
It is a strange world, isn't it, really? But you do end up, having people's numbers in your phone, and you think, how on earth did that happen?
Absolutely.
Go back 40 years or so when you're just a young lad, then you'd never have dreamt of it in a million years.
Absolutely. And then the next sort of thing that really, I'd gone professional by this point because I was earning enough money to pay the mortgage and all that sort of thing. And that's all I've ever really wanted. I've never wanted a sort of Ferrari and a crunchy gravel drive or anything. I just want to live and do music. And what happened was Glen did this tribute to Mick Ronson, I think it was, at the ICA, and he asked me if I wouldn't mind coming along and sort of being a sort of guitar tech for him, just because, a couple of acoustics and what have you. And I met this guy called Tom Wilcox. Yeah. And Tom basically was the manager for Holy Holy from its inception till right up until sort of, I think it was a couple of years ago, and then he just felt he'd done enough and was ready to move on to new things. But basically I guess Tom was quite impressed with the way I worked or something, I don't know, but there was this thing called the Iggy Fest at ICA, and it was just an all-star lineup. It was a tribute to Iggy Pop sort of thing, but Iggy knew all about it. It was, he sent a video message and all that sort of stuff. And but it was Kevin Armstrong, who's Iggy's current guitarist. It was Erdal Kizilkay, who I've spoken about as well, Bowie's bass player. I think I've forgotten the name of the keyboard player, which is awful. I think it's Richard Cottle, and I think he might have been Tina Turner's keyboard player. Don't quote me on it. But we had Steve Norman from Spandau Ballet on there as well. Andy Anderson from The Cure, which was absolutely fantastic, because me and Andy hadn't seen each other for 25 years.
How comes running full circle?
And it was just, we stood outside talking like we were talking outside John Henry's 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
How bizarre.
And where I came in was, I said to Tom, I'll help with it. But because Erdl's a multi-instrumentalist, and there's a couple of Iggy tracks. One's called Cry for Love, and one's called Winners and Losers. And they both have violin on them. Or viola, I don't know. Erdl would probably slap me if I don't get it right.
Probably would.
But it's one of those. It's a violin-shaped instrument.
Yes.
Whether it's a small viola or a slightly larger violin, I don't know.
You couldn't say.
But he's a master at both. And he wanted to play on that. So they asked me if I'd play bass on it. And so that, again, was amazing. The lead singer was Alex Zapak, who's a sort of New York performance artist.
Right.
So that was a bit of a stroke of genius, I think, having a woman front it,
Yeah.
so that people weren't making comparisons to Iggy.
Of course.
But she did wear silver trousers
Oh.
and all that.
And go topless.
She did. No, you laugh, honestly.
No, I was joking there.
No, she did. That was incredible. That was... nobody knew she was going to do that either. But she did. She ended up... She did the sort of Wendy O. Williams thing, having tape across the nips. But then even that came off, you know. So, it was a fantastic gig. It was amazing.
Wonderful.
And to play with those people. And that put me in front of these other people who saw that I worked well and all that sort of thing. And so... I in the end, Tom asked me if I'd join Holy Holy, which was not the lineup you see now with Glenn Gregory and all that, but it was me, Woody Woodmansey from the Spiders of Mars, of course, Malcolm Doherty, who's a very well-known guy in London, does a lot of solo stuff and does a lot of band stuff. And jumping right ahead, Malcolm, I've ended up working with Malcolm on the Daphne Guinness album,
Right.
which is produced by Tony Visconti as well. So, I mean, it put me in front of those people. But the Holy Holy stuff was great. The first tour was wonderful. Again, Steve Norman from Spandau Ballet. We had Lisa Ronson, Mick Ronson's daughter, on backing vocals. I mean, it's just a fantastic lineup. And then Tony Visconti fancied joining in for the Man Who Sold the World thing. I mean, I'm hopping a bit. There was a couple of tours that I did.
Yeah.
But I loved it so much. I was quite happy to crew it.
Yes,
You know,
right.
Tom was a bit sort of, oh, sorry, Dave, Tony Visconti. But I mean, God, if you're going to get knocked off an instrument by anyone, make it the greatest producer and one of the most brilliant bass players.
You don't kind of care
ever.
then, do
No,
you?
it's
You
just
think
like,
that's fair enough?
I don't care. I'll
Yeah.
set up his equipment. I don't mind.
I'm not proud.
And like I say, it's paid stuff. It's you've got to earn the mortgage,
Of
so
course.
you might as well do that. So
Of
that's
course.
great. And my time with Holy Holy only came to an end really when Tom decided to move on from the management thing. And I believe that they're managed now by the Cults management,
Right.
and I think they just use the Cults guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the way it worked out. So. But I was in Atlantic Machine with Jim from the the producer for the Stereophonics. That was his thing. I did the drums for that, and it's been lovely to be able to sort of roadie for people like Mick Jones from the Clash or Midger from Ultravox and doing his stuff, and so I've kept going along, and now I've moved into sort of areas of production and doing film soundtracks, and probably one of the reasons I'm sitting in front of this microphone is I have a new single
You certainly
that
do.
I put together.
Tell me all about it.
Well,
And is this completely new? You said
yeah.
right at the start, didn't you, that you were talking about when you were young, you were doing some writing.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've
actually,
always written.
you have all the way through your career. So you've worked for a lot of other
Yeah.
people.
Well, it's
You've
just-
played with lots of different bands, but actually behind the scenes, you've been doing your own stuff too.
That's where it came from, was the fact that I just realised that because I'd been doing all this crew work and sessioning, and so I was sessioning for people like Willie Nile, the US singer-songwriter, he's one of Springsteen's bunch, and I was doing a drum tour for him, and I suddenly sort of thought to myself, I haven't done anything of my own for ages, and the initial idea was I was going to do a solo single, and just and I love vinyl. I'm a massive vinyl buff, so I thought I want to put out a single, and I saved up the money to press it, and then what I did then was I decided that I didn't want to. Basically, what happened was I'd got the songs. The two songs for the A and B side, and I really thought they were good, and I wanted to do them as a solo single. But then, when I was sort of practicing the various parts, I was drumming like Ed Graham from The Darkness. He was a really good friend of mine, and I wasn't doing it as good as he'd do it. I was trying to get that boom crack thing that Ed is just. Ed doesn't even believe that he's one of the great British rock drummers, but he is. He's an amazing drummer. He's so tasteful and so powerful and solid. And in the end, I just said to him, would you mind playing on something for me? And we had to run it past the darkness management and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, they said, yeah, as long as you don't use the logo, he can do it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I got Ed to do it, and I thought, okay, so that leaves me and Ed. I don't want it to look like it's a duo.
No.
And then I also realised that actually I don't want to sing. No one needs to hear that, really. I do backing vocals, but I don't want to do that. And myself and Amy Conradine had been talking about doing a project together, but we hadn't put anything into effect. So I sent her the demo with me singing on it, and she said she really liked it. I said, well, do you want to do the single? She said, yeah, great. So then it seemed a bit odd that I'd just be playing guitar and bass.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, I love Glen Matlock's bass playing, and like I say, I admire him as a songwriter, but I love the runs that he does on bass. He plays with his fingers. He's always said to me that a plectrum is the coward's way out.
Oh.
And I play with a plectrum,
Controversial.
so I was doing my sort of Ramonesy ding 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 thing. And I just said to Glen, I just thought, well, there's no harm in asking.
Yeah.
So I said to Glen one day, I said, look, I've got this single that I want to do. I've got, a girl called Amy, and I said, Ed from the Darkness is doing the drums for me. Do you mind doing the bass? And he just immediately said, yeah, I'll do it.
Dude.
So, I went into the studio with Ed and Amy, and we rattled down the drum parts. Mm-hmm. And then I went back later to do guitars and vocals. And then I took the whole lot to Glen's house, and he loaded it up into his machine. He did the bass. And it was mixed by Jim Lowe, who's had 5 number ones and a Grammy nomination.
Yeah, can't get better.
And then it was mastered, just to finish it off, mastered by John Davis, who I've always loved seeing his name on the back of things, because John Davis mastered lots of things like White Lies, I mean, he did all the remasters he did the Led Zeppelin remasters, for instance, but he did Lana Del Rey, and just like, he's just got such a brilliant ear to bring out the best in a finished, mix of something, and so I'm really happy that every step of the way this single has been built with friends. Yeah. And everyone, even the front cover's been done by a Norwich artist called Simon Pritchard, and even before I met Simon, there's a rehearsal place called Earth Studios, and that's where I often go, and his paintings are in there, and I always thought they were great, but I never knew it was Simon Pritchard.
Oh, right, okay.
And then sort of through a friend of a friend, as it were, I met Simon finally. And I always just thought, well, I'd like him to do it.
Wow,
I'd really
amazing.
like him to paint it. And so there's no aspect of... Even the guy that's putting the single out on the record company, I was introduced to him via going to a friend's birthday party. So it was like...
All fortuitous.
Yeah, everyone knows each other. So what I love about this is it's not cynical in any way or a money-making exercise. I just want it to be there.
Authentic, it's true, it's from the heart.
But it's really good... 3.5-minute anthemic rock and roll.
Bit rock and roll,
it's
terrific.
really good. I don't mean rock and roll as in Elvis and
no,
stuff.
No,
but
no,
I mean just
pure rock.
It's got a touch. Obviously, it's got a touch of the darknessy type thing because Ed's drumming makes you play hard and heavy. Yeah. And Amy's a very beautiful, tattooed, gorgeous, strong lady to have at the front and that, and amazing voice, but an attitude that you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of. And she's great. She's so pretty. It's so weird because it sort of belies what she looks really sweet and cute, but I wouldn't want to chase her off.
She'd have had herself in a barred ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then what happened? The sad part of it is that all the money that I'd saved up, my other half was hit by a car and had a really bad accident.
Is she okay now?
Yes, she's physically fine. It still causes problems. She was really hurt badly, but it meant that I looked after her. I stopped doing a lot of stuff, and bit by bit, all the stuff that I'd saved up really kind of frittered away. And so for a year and a half or so, I had no idea how I was going to do this and that. And then, like I say, I went to this party. Met a lady called Nellie, Nellie Pitts, who was Prog Rock's Woman of the Year, 7th Woman of the Year in Prog Rock magazine. Terrific. Because she runs shops. She runs a sort of internet shop for a lot of prog bands and what have you. And she said that she thought her friend, by the sound of it, she hadn't even heard it, but from the sound of what I was saying, she said, I think my friend Chris Topham might like this. He runs a record company called Plain Groovy, and they've got... I knew Plain Groovy got people like Chris Difford from Screez and stuff on there. Yeah, sure. And that they'd done a Spiz Energy single and stuff like that. So sent the MP3 off, and within minutes, the guy got back and he just said... He genuinely said, this is the most exciting track I've heard in years. It really made me jump around my room. I'll put it out for you.
Wonderful. So when is this all coming out then? This
can't give you a proper release date, but I do know like the sleeve's done and the text for the sleeve is done. Now I'm sending it to Chris. I guess there'll be a waiting list at the pressing plant, but I'd be surprised if it wasn't late August, maybe something like that. But just keep an eye out. Keep an eye out.
Keep an eye out. It's going to be big. Well, do you know what, Dave? It's been absolutely wonderful. It's always lovely spending time with you anyway.
Indeed.
It really is. And you've got so many great stories to tell.
Oh, there's tons more.
There are tons more. So we will do this again. Let's do
part 2.
Do you know what? Good luck with the it's a vinyl you said there. Is it a whole album or is it a single?
No, it's a vinyl. It's the name of the band is The Venus Reaction.
Okay.
Which I got from a friend in America, introduced me to a guy who I found out was a psychiatrist, and he said that psychiatrists have slang terms for issues that people have. And if someone's been sent a bit odd because of love, anything like either a breakup or they've met someone and their brain just takes a holiday, they call it the Venus Reaction.
Is that right?
Amongst themselves.
I love that.
And I like that.
It's the planet of love,
and
isn't
the track is called Crashing Up.
Brilliant.
And it's a real cool track, and I co-wrote it with a girl who was 16 at the time called Chelsea O'Reilly. And sorry, not O'Reilly, Chelsea Riley. Sorry, she's not Irish. Me and Chelsea wrote a few songs together, but that one really stood up. And it's a real sort of it's an empowering message of not letting people give you any.
Buck.
Yes, I say that.
Yeah. Well, good luck with it, Dave. It's going to be wonderful, and we'll have another chat when it's number 1 around the world.
In my house.
In your house. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Thank you.
Speak soon. Okay, take care.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Cat Tales. To listen again to this and other tales, go to cattales.co.uk.